Okay, and away we go. Alrighty. Hello, everybody. I think it's just Brian right now. Anyway, hope everybody's doing well. Watching this in the future now, since hopefully this records. I don't know if it will, since the last two times we tried this, it did not. But anyway, if you were there, hello. But yeah, anyway, so today we are working on a screenplay that I've been working on for quite a while. Mostly just working on the rewrite of it, and kind of breaking it down before I start actually going to pages. So today we'll also be experimenting with the countdown timers too, so hopefully I've got that working. As we'll be doing I think they call it Pomodoro. It's the 25 minutes of writing and then 5-minute breaks. I've found that actually helps a lot when I'm doing a lot of writing. So, anyway, figure we might as well just get started on stuff. So, first off, we'll probably talk through some things. I'll probably just kind of talk into the void, bounce ideas, and try to figure out what I'm doing before I actually get to writing. About said slasher film. All right, so let's go ahead and bring it up. Let's see if this stuff still works. Perfect. All right, and bring up music. Someday I'll get the ability to use cryo chamber, since I generally write to cryo chamber, but I think I've found a decent amount enough music that's similar enough, kind of background drone music, so it's not too distracting. All right, cool. So let's see here. We've got. All right. So I've got my breakdowns here. These are all my notes from the last readers that I've had go through this a while ago, and then just my own notes going back through the script a couple months later, and trying to find kind of what's not working. Initially, I had tried to make this. I had conceived of it as a kind of like I wanted to try to meld a hangout movie, a slasher film, and a cosmic horror film into one, and that is too many things to do, because my first draft of the script runs about 115 pages, which is too long. Ideally, we'll kind of want this to be closer to maybe 100, maybe even under. It's just a lot easier. Less pages is always good for readers and for people interested in looking at it. Shorter is better. Shorter is better in festivals. If you're trying to take it to festivals, just generally, unless you have name and clout and can get away with it, unless you're Martin Scorsese and you can just make 3-hour movies, and people don't mind because you're Martin Scorsese. For us nobodies, you got to keep them short and sweet, so they can program more, and also probably honestly is better starting out, and it's better on your budgets for the most part, and your production crews. All right, so I guess getting started here. So now I'm trying to refocus the script into more of a slasher with a cosmic horror vibe, and the hangout elements can kind of live there. Slasher films tend to always have kind of like a bunch of characters. It just won't be kind of like where a hangout movie is just kind of letting people be themselves and their life and sort of develop character and story and theme through that. We're just going to have to keep it short and sweet. All right, so I think here we've got... that's the treatment. Yeah, this is the same thing. Okay. Yeah, all right. Where is my... Pretty sure at one point... It's the script. Okay. I think we were just kind of... yeah, so I think at one point I had notes here. Oh, you know what? I think I did. Ah, I know what I did. I was like, wait, there's more here. I made a duplicate on my laptop. And let's see if I can find it. And we'll flip to that one because I was like, these notes are old. There it is. So we'll open you up. That's fine, we can continue. Doesn't need. There we go. That's what I want. Voila. Alright. And I think I should be able to just switch you over here. Boom. I think that worked. Cool. All right. Now I can get rid of you. Awesome. There we go. All right. Yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure I had more fleshed out here. Perfect. Okay, a little bit more. Bring you in here. Actually, just you. OBS here. There we go. Awesome. Cool. All right. Cool. Okay, so the biggest thing is going to be... oh yeah, and then we got my freeform story writing here, which is where I was kind of starting to come up with some ideas about how to... because we're changing some of the characters here to exist differently than they were in the initial draft. Yes, and we're adding some more cosmic-y, trippy stuff to it. Okay. All right. Cool. And this is like, are actually trying to build out the treatment here. So go back to freeform story writing here. And the big thing, at least, you know, you look at like Scream and stuff like that. Let's do, so yeah, I've got these establishing beats here, but for the most part, I've found it easier to kind of build things around set pieces for things like this, just to kind of like wrap my head around. So part one is going to be built, it's just going to be built around, so it's built around a D&D night between friends and the other group of friends. There's two group of friends here. There's sort of an initial fracture between the friend groups that we have here. That's causing some just sort of right out of the gate some tension between, particularly the relationship of two of the characters. Actually, technically three of the characters. But it kind of sets up that there's, you know, it's not just idyllic, this sort of idyllic sense. You know, everybody, it's not like everybody's happy and there's no issues, and then, you know, someone comes and starts killing a bunch of kids or something like that, slasher movie style. But that there's already some melancholy there, some, you know, things are not ideal, which is important thematically for kind of what I'm trying to do here. So then we have the punk show. And then this is going to... these are the two big set pieces. And since it's a slasher, we have... yeah, these are going to be our set pieces. So D&D night and punk show. Okay. And then the murder, at least the inciting murder. Murder is going to be Kyle. On his way home. And in the original draft, I had kind of built in, so I guess we can cover all the characters, even though some of them have changed. We have Bailey, who's the lead. Kyle, who's her boyfriend, who we're kind of led to believe might be the lead, but we're doing the kind of, Scream thing where Scream just does it where it's the opening murder with Drew Barrymore. So it's kind of like we think that this is our lead, and then she gets killed on the front lawn, that kind of thing. We're gonna have this one kind of last closer to the whole first act, not just the first scene, but we're gonna use Kyle as kind of the source for a lot of the more character-y conflicts that are going on. So Kyle and Bailey are together. They're the couple, and Kyle's best friend is Cameron. And then we have Jamie, who is Bailey's best friend, who is also kind of a punk rock musician and that sort of thing. And it turns out that Jamie has inappropriate feelings about Kyle that we kind of get into, that kind of leads into kind of her senses of guilt. And so Kyle's murder is kind of a catalyst for a lot of this stuff to start unwinding, and some of these tensions to kind of start to come out to the forefront. So it's very high school / college drama, but then you're raising the stakes because there's crazy supernatural murders happening. So the biggest thing is going to be just being clear about this. So part 2. So after the murders, going back to the original draft here, do I have, what is my, I think I was into here. So I don't know if this will show up, but yeah, so here we've got the original script that I wrote back in, I don't even remember when sometime last year, the end of last year, I think. So let's go down to, all right, so we start off behind him. That's right. Okay. Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah, the first act, the murder at the first act doesn't happen until 36 pages. That's when you know you're in trouble. Trying to write something short, and or not like a horror movie. I mean, write as long as the story needs to be, but there's a lot of, asshole people in Hollywood that'll tell you if you go way too far over, like if you send a horror script out and, it's over, literally over 90 pages sometimes, they just start talking to you like you don't know what you're doing. That's just them being pretentious. There's no real right answers to that, but it's 36 pages and trying to make it pretty tight. That's too long. And there's for other reasons too, where we get into kind of some of the causes and stuff. Yes, people are dumb, and also very much with the Hollywood folk, everyone likes to talk like they know what they're doing when it's a crapshoot. The most successful people I know, usually their advice is nobody knows. Nobody knows anything. It's a crapshoot. But, people send things to the blacklist and all that stuff. They'll, people get pissy. Like, don't you know what you're doing? It might be a bad example because I'm not a huge fan of Ari Aster, but I think I can't remember if it was Hereditary. I don't think it was Midsummer, but I think the script for Hereditary was like 125 pages, and I remember people being like, "This." Like, I remember reading a script review of it on a blog. You know, and I don't think it's a good movie, but this guy was just like, he's like, I just stopped wanting to read it when I saw it was 100. You don't write a 120-page horror movie, and you're like, yeah, that's pretentious assholes right there. Well, everyone likes to think they know what's good, and nobody really does. Or can predict, I guess, what's good. Okay, so yeah, so we've got, so if we start off at a hookah bar, where everybody is kind of hanging out. But another thing, probably just contextually, is that this takes place in a small town in Colorado in 2008. I'm definitely writing it kind of inspired to a certain degree from my own time in school, in college, during in 2008. And hookah bars were the place to be, at least if you were weirdos like me and my weird group of friends in a very, very overwhelmingly white white town in Colorado. Everybody liked the hookah bar. It was the hookah bar or the bar. So we have that. Everyone's kind of talking about the missing sense of Kyle. But that's not really our big set piece. That's just kind of there. It could be, though. So that's a thing, is it might actually... The problem is hookah bars tend to be pretty small, but we could do something like a, like closing night at the hookah bar, to build around. Because the idea is we're not tied to these scenes, but you want your like big horror movie set piece type things. Like, what are the locations, the creepy house, or a good example of Scream is like the big, I think it's in the second act, end of the second act, where you have the house party. So you kind of like, you try to have these sort of set pieces built around what you're building towards. Like an event where you get lots of people or anything like that. So I think actually in one of my initial outlines for this way back, I did have something happen at the hookah bar. We'll see if that holds. So could do that. Question mark there. Let's see. Yeah, there's that. So that's right. Okay, yeah, then that's right. So I structured this where we go into the flashback stuff. So we're going to... Part 2 is where we're going to introduce the next door neighbor. So that's going to be our big... It's not our set piece, but that's the thing that needs to happen. So our new character, who is, I guess, to a degree, the villain of the story. Villain. And because it's kind of cosmic horror slasher, there's going to be a lot of weird reasons for that to be the case. Where you've got something killing, where we're going to kind of get all like psychologically trippy, where we've got a sort of fragmented personality, or sort of, in Jungian terms, a physical murderous expression of the psyche running around causing havoc, which for this particular script looks like an old Orthodox monk with no eyes. I don't know if anyone's familiar with some like old, Russian icons and stuff like that. They always have kind of a cool look. They're always gaunt, crazy beards. Yes, eyeless monks. Yeah, they're cool. They're fucking cool. And there's a famous story. I kind of based it off a very specific monk, where he was out like chopping. He was chopping wood, and I think I think he got robbed or something. I don't know. They like stabbed him a bunch of times and like crippled him. And like he, it almost killed him and made him like maimed permanently. And he, in typical monk fashion, that's why he's like almost kind of a patron saint, is like wanted to forgive them. Monk stuff. But I kind of liked the image of a monk dragging a wood cutting axe that had no eyes, running around murdering a bunch of college kids, just seemed kind of cool to me. And like, why not make your horror icon a literal icon? Just make it a literal religious icon. And then obviously we'll have character reasons for that she's technically Russian. She could be Russian or Greek, honestly, wherever the Orthodox. Or technically, yeah, Russian or Greek. Ethiopian, too, is Ethiopian Orthodox as well. That all kind of come from the same, kind of generally the same school of the Eastern Church. But it's kind of like the idea of religious repression that still lingers in the subconscious, even though you try to get away from it. Probably was a good choice to watch Saint Maud last night, because it's not exactly the same, but similar, about someone kind of covering trauma through a sort of intense religious extreme religious. Will there be fire? There actually is. There's a lot of fire. Not quite in the same sense that there was in Saint Maud at the end, but fire is an active symbol that's in the script. There will be a lot of fire. The monk itself ignites into fire, and that's how it goes from the planet to, because it's technically a sort of cosmic Lovecraftian entity down when you get down to it. It's kind of how it how it is born is through fire. It kind of exists through lighting fires. I like fires in caves. It's a thing I put in a lot of my movies, just weird, mysterious caves with fires. So we've got that. So that's kind of where so there will be burning crazy monk in this. And the fire also burns red and consumes blood. There's a little bit of like some visual stuff where like the blood kind of snakes through things and ignites into a red fire, and that's kind of how it sort of manifests in the world. So let's see here. I think I was talking about the monk, but you'll take it anytime there's fire. All right, let's see. Yeah, that's where we have the apartment, so I'm probably gonna want more interesting set pieces, or at least like just situations. One of the main themes, or what I'm trying to really get to, is that there's a lot of fragmentation amongst the friend groups, or the friends in the group, that kind of leads to their demise a little bit. You get a little bit of that in slashers in general, but I'm trying to make a more thematic point by having them kind of break apart, not be able to rely on each other, or, they kind of fall into their own little, what they think they need to do, and right, which ultimately gets them killed. So, let's see here. So that's how. So we'll probably start part 2. We got our big things. We got the murderer shows up. And for the script, we call him the Traveler. So, let's see. The Traveler shows up. And then the murder kind of gets murdered on his way home. And maybe, I know I had this in flashback in the second half. It might just be easier to make it happen here, just to make the tensions clearer. And just get to it faster. That's kind of the thing, is just, you kind of want to like let things linger, let things evolve and stuff like that. That works a lot better in like hangout movies and stuff like that, where a large reason why you're watching these characters is to watch things develop over time. But because this is a horror film, and also because it's a slasher film, we have to get to it. So we might have the flashback scene where Jamie makes out with Kyle. We might have that actually happen in part 1. So we just might have Jamie making out with Kyle happen here. happens here, and maybe that prompts his sort of like long trudge home, where he eventually gets killed. Because in the other one, he just gets drunk and feels sad that he, you know, is kind of a failure at life. So we'll keep that a little bit. We'll keep the failure at life part. Or that he feels like he's going nowhere is kind of more what his whole deal is before he gets killed. Happens here. Like, you can hear it. Happens here on the way home. Okay. All right. So we've got that. Before he heads home. It's home, but then he never makes it home, which prompts us to go to Jamie. Alright. Then we're going to introduce our villain of the story, if you want to even call her that, which is Shayla. So in the first draft, we have her, we build her up in the first act as well with everybody else. But in this case, we're just going to kind of have it be a lot of the same, maybe some flashes, some things kind of hinting towards it in the first part, but we're not really going to get into her and her story in the second part. So that's, which makes sense because I do, in the first draft of the script, I do a lot of her backstory stuff in part 2, the sort of second segment before we get to the midpoint of the movie. And the midpoint of the movie is kind of, I guess, realizing who she is. In a way, the cosmic thing. So we already kind of linger on her, but and then we need everyone coming to terms with the fact that their friend is dead. Everyone's gonna initially think that they were run over by a train, but the cops know otherwise, and then they're gonna have to start interrogating the kids. That was the biggest note I got about the first draft of this script, was that I just kind of ignored the cops. Oh, who is that? Oh, hello. Yes. Is that Yasa? Yasa? I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. Welcome. My name's Twilight, and welcome to the chat. We're writing a slasher screenplay right now. An action hero versus slasher movie not named Predator. Yes, unfortunately this one is not an action movie. This one is slasher with cosmic horror with a bunch of college kids. But an action hero slasher movie. What? Oh, Yesiah. Okay, cool. Well, welcome. Glad to have you here. Feel free to hang out, and, you know, if you're writing, what are you writing? Or just watching stuff. When was the last, like, action horror movie? I guess. I mean, they all kind of turn into that, in a way, like Survivor Girl stories, but that's, like, straight up. I mean, that one's... Is Predator a horror movie? It's like sci-fi action in a way. It's like it's more like Aliens in a way, you know, where Alien itself is like more of a horror film. Aliens is kind of doing the whole like just sci-fi action with horror elements. But yeah, I guess, I don't know. I always kind of linger that Predator is more of an action movie, or one that would be. One that kind of is in an interesting way, in my opinion, is The Terminator. Because that movie's built like a slasher film. It's completely built and structured like a slasher film. Just with, you know, an unstoppable machine. I'm writing a superhero story about a character named Yesiah, well, not my real name, in which he must redeem humanity? Well, hell. That is a tall order. But that is the kind of order that you would expect of a superhero. Very cool. That sounds like a blast. And redeeming humanity, that is a quest, Whether do they succeed, or is it sort of like Greek in the sort of it's tragic? They attempt it, and maybe humanity is always worth redeeming, but can it be? Can it fully be redeemed, or just does it always have the opportunity or the possibility of being redeemed? But that's cool. That's cool. All right. Yes. So we introduce Shayla. And she, essentially, she is a kind of, let's see, struggling young mother. She is, of course, a meth addict. And she has an interesting past, which we'll get into. The idea that a lot of what we're trying to do here a little bit is going to be kind of identities. So, kind of the idea of a little bit like online identities versus real identities in a way. She's going to essentially have been a kind of like the first e-girl in a weird way. I'm kind of basing her off of, if you're familiar with underground Chan stuff, Cracky Chan, and kind of the weird, crazy stuff the real weird stuff. If you ever want to just quick rundown of it, there's a great YouTube video by a YouTuber named Meme Analysis that kind of talks about it. He kind of talks about it in a weird, like almost narrative story way. I don't know if it's much more like magician-y, magic type Jungian stuff, which is cool, but it's not like it's not like an anthropological study of who this person was. But it's definitely worth a watch just to kind of like unlock just how strange it is, and particularly that period with 4chan where it did kind of oddly become a pseudo religion. So we're going to kind of use that I'm kind of using that a little bit as a basis for who this character is. It's just we're way past that, where she's, she comes from kind of, white trash, middle trash people, in like deserts of Arizona or something like that, and got involved with drugs, wrong side of people, ran away from home, that kind of character. What do we got here? He's crucified like Jesus during the Illumin trials and must save humans. His powers. Okay, cool. So they're similar to Superman. That's cool. Lumens feed on humans. Lumens feed on humans, just animals. That's Oh, okay. Okay. So they just devour humans essentially. Humans, just animals. That's the conflict. Okay, cool. I mean, I don't know if you've ever read All-Star Superman, but that is one of my favorite comics ever written. Him doing the 12 feats is just incredible. But yeah, that's cool. That's, a lot of people give Superman a bad rap, or powers. Like, I think they kind of miss the point of what Superman's about. It's not, if you make everything just about the superpowers, it loses. It's not interesting. It's interesting what they do with those powers, and what those powers say about them, their humanity, the world at large, things like that. All right, cool. So, yeah, we've got that. So we're going to introduce her, but our two big set pieces here. Oh, no, they feed on animals, and humans find them eating their... Oh, got you. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Oh, so it's kind of like, they're kind of like wolves in that way, where, like, farmers would, farmers in the U.S. almost eradicated wolves because of the whole livestock thing. Gotcha. Yeah, they feed on animals. Okay, so they're, like, essentially they want to eradicate them or stop them from... Oh yes, I definitely remember the Salem witch trials. I actually have been to those museums. I was very obsessed with those. with and I also love The Witch, which is kind of in that same vibes. Weird witch movies. Methodic, she has an interesting past, so I mean we can start. The hookah bar is interesting. We don't want the whole thing to just. Oh, it's like Blade. Is that he doesn't? Oh, is that he doesn't need to feed, or that they found kind of a way around it? Because I think Blade's got his buddy, right? And they like kind of find a way to like suppress his need, but it's not like they've just like. But it's always like a ticking clock. Like there's that's always the thing with half vampires is there's always like there's the possibility that they go full that they're gonna turn. They either don't get whatever it is, the thing that suppresses the virus, or however you want to justify the vampirism, or I mean, you could even make it kind of like a moral quandary at that point. Like it's a quality of their character that they don't succumb to the hunger, almost like addiction. You could use it as kind of an allegory for addiction if you wanted to. Let's see here. Okay. Hooray! I like how I just typed that. Meant hookah bar. But yeah, you don't want just houses. Like, we can do some houses, we just don't. We don't want the whole thing to just take place in apartments and houses. Which, so part 2 is going to be a hookah bar. This is the sort of like post-murder congregation. The post-murder congregation that can then kind of like everybody, we bring them together, and then how they react to that. And then we go to, probably should, at that point, it might be maybe police station. And that's where we start questioning. Do we want to have them be like he was run over by a train? The audience already knows he wasn't run over by a train, so it's not. How long do we want the characters to think that that's true? Or do we immediately want them to kind of like add certain things? All right, let's see. Brian. Okay, all my emails have been sent. Still watching, but switching to mobile for a few to step out. Cool. Thank you, Brian. As always. Lovely, lovely, lovely that you are. Okay. Let's see. Oh, sorry. I think him being half human, half illumin could be a good concept. Yeah. I mean, it's, it's always that's the Campbellian thing is a person of two worlds, right? I mean, that's more like the archetype of the hero's journey where you go down into the underworld and come back as sort of the master of two worlds. But in that one, you can make it much more direct where it's just, they are literally just two people, or in two existences trapped in one. And there's always like the duality there and trying to try to create a synthesis for themselves or not, you never know. Or they can't, or they fail. They succumb to one or the other. If I can make him claim to be their leader, the crucifixion makes more sense. Okay. If I make him claim to be their leader. Oh, yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, that's, I mean, that makes more sense. That's definitely like I mean, that definitely makes it definitely aligns it more with the sort of like the Jesus parable a little bit there. Yeah. Okay. Let's say yeah. During the trial, yeah. Yeah, so you're just like, you said destroying the leader of, essentially, the leader of them, and creating a martyr out of it, in a way. Photosynthetic being with vampire powers and the powers. Photosynthetic being with vampire powers and power suggestion. Okay. Cool. Is that for the Illumins then? I assume. That's their kind of, or is that his powers? That's like kind of what he can do. Photosynthetic being with vampire powers and power suggestion. All right. Okay, police station. Here we go. We got. Let's see. So we have the police station. Yeah, they react to that. Then we go to the police station. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yep. That's what I thought you were getting at. How they react to that. Then we go to. Let's see. Maybe they the cops show up. It's always fun to show the failure of authority, which also works thematically for kind of what I'm trying to say with this a little bit. It's a trope for slashers to kind of just have, the cops not have any idea what's actually going on. They're always kind of like running around trying to figure out, what's going on, and it's always they always have no clue and botch the whole thing up. But it's a trope, but I think at least thematically it works here. Maybe let the cops investigate or inquire or interrogate Bailey and Cameron. Probably Cameron first since he's the roommate. About Kyle. And that's going to clue them that they don't think he was run over by a train. Run over by a train. All right, let's see. Yes, I flip vampires on their head. Cool. His weakness is darkness, so he must drink blood at night to survive. Oh, interesting. Okay. His weakness is darkness. Okay. So, oh, wow. So, like, I mean, I guess that makes sense. He's photosynthetic, so it's interesting. So he has to like drink blood. That's at night. That's cool. Other weaknesses is a metal called illuminatum, which the moon is made of, and is in human blood. Interesting. Do you have like a lore? Are you gonna like develop like a? I don't know. That's kind of fascinating that there's a metal that's in the moon. That's like, I don't know. That's in human blood. That seems like there could be like a really weird lore, really lore reason for that. Like human beings are of the moon or something like that. I don't know. Or like for some reason, I just think that's cool. I also am obsessed with moons. So, book title: Yesai, the Son of Man. Oh, cool. Son of Man's a good play there. That works. All right. Okay. Cops interrogate Bailey and Cameron. Clue them in that they don't think he was run over by a train. Cool. All right, so that's going to throw them into kind of chaos. They think he was actually murdered. So maybe we have that happen that quickly. Then we do. How do we want to do this? I'm a big fan of midpoints, and the midpoint of the movie is kind of really when I want to hammer home that this is not just a straight slasher, but also, but in fact, like this has cosmic repercussions. And there's two ways we can do that. We can either have it be that the Traveler himself begins to exhibit supernatural powers, or by tying the Traveler to Shayla. Just kind of what I did in the initial draft of this script. So, let's see. My universe, humans coming from the moon could be cool. Yeah, when you said that they were, they have a thing in their blood that the moon is made of. That's what I think of. I'm just like, oh, that's cool. That's the reason. You could come up with some really weird or interesting reasons for that. What is that? there's always interesting things about people living on the moon and all that. There's the Japanese folk story. What is that? The Bamboo Cutter, I think. It's about a princess coming from the moon, but just cool stuff. Cool. Could do cool things. Human beings come from the moon. That there were creatures from the moon that human beings, crossed with. And so kind of descendant of both terrestrial and moon people. Who knows? Could have some interesting stuff there. Maybe there's still people on the moon. Okay, so the next big set of murders, at least the ones we need to build to, it's going to be the hookah bar folks, so that makes more sense why they would probably be the hookah bar, even though in the original script I have them meet up at home. Maybe we do the hookah bar murders. Who got murdered in the hookah bar? Hookah bar murders. I don't know. You can always, it's always fun. You want a place that has like an interesting look to it. Hookah bars always kind of have like, they got mood light. Already have mood lighting. They also have, have some interesting things that you can do with it. So let's go and say we have. Let's see. You remember? Yeah, lots of ideas. Name the serial killer yet? Well, so the slasher is called the Traveler. And the big reveal is that the serial killer is not a serial killer. It's in fact a sort of almost Lovecraftian cosmic entity that, I guess in a weird way, plague the mind of a young tortured child from the internet, from the early days of the internet, named Shayla, who's the meth addict, character that we have in here. So she's tied to it, and essentially is kind of being reborn in a way. So it is actually not a person. Is kind of is going to be at least the mid-act reveal that it's not in fact an actual person. But the Traveler looks kind of like an old Orthodox monk. If you've ever seen those, like weird old like monks but with no eyes. All right. So kind of looks hobo-y initially. So maybe we have that. So we have James, who's what I like to call our, what would be a 2008 version of a libertarian logic man. That you'd always find in a hookah bar in 2008 in a college town, believe me. All right, so we got James, and let's see, and who do we have? The other person working at the hookah bar will be our next victims here. Let's see here. Yeah, that's right, Megan. Let's go back through and look at the original script for this. Okay. All right. At the hookah bar. And maybe, since we have Tamra, kind of hangs around. Since we have Tamra is essentially Megan's best friend. Tamra is there. And witnesses the murders. Which will give her insight, because we want Tamra's the one who's kind of the internet subculture person. She's going to be the one who's going to kind of start putting the pieces together about the Traveler's tie to to this creepy old internet figure named Lily-chan, is what we're calling it in the script. And so she's going to be the one who's going to kind of like have an idea that these things are linked, because she's also... Let's see. All right, then that's, I think, our big... Oh, okay. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so we've got... Oh, man. So I kind of have this... Yeah, okay. So originally in the script, I had this set up for kind of actually being the second act ending, though. That probably makes sense. Because I was getting it spread out so much. Okay. So if we're going to move... Probably want this to be a little bit later. Probably like Saint Maud, too. What's up? I want my antithesis of Isaiah to be like Joker. Whoa, Chucky. Oh, man. So you want your sort of villain, the one opposed to Isaiah, to be... I mean, Chucky... I could see, like, Joker for sure. But, you know, that's pretty comic. Like, Chaos, the sort of the Chaos character. But Chucky's interesting. I mean, that... Talking about serial killers and slashers. Like, how like Chucky? Like, more just kind of like a... Like, crude sense of humor. While essentially murder. Like, being kind of like a horrific... kind of murderer, or is that kind of what you're like thinking in terms of, because of the Joker and Chucky, they have a sort of charisma that might be in line with, or I guess stand to, I guess, make them more interesting. Just an asshole killer. Okay. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's definitely Chucky for sure. People, nice. That's is there, are you gonna try to like, are you gonna kind of make him, that's just what he is, he's just this asshole, or are you gonna go into like his background a little bit more, like how he, because I know a lot of times with the Joker, you know, so many comics try to dredge up like where the Joker came from, who the Joker was, or do you gonna try to kind of keep it mysterious and that it's just that's who that person is, and kind of let that play? Let's see. Bring you up here. Okay, let's see. All right, so we got them to, yeah. So we go to the police station. Hook up our post-murder congregation. Yeah, let's see. Introduce Shayla. Frankenstein's monster, as well a tortured man who was reanimated. Okay, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it would be kind of interesting if it's a cyborg. Okay. Yeah, so like forced. I don't know. I always find the idea of being like life being forced against your will interesting. Like, you know, like you say you wanted to die or just were like fine with dying, and then someone just keeps you alive and you can't die, or by any means of your own. Something's like stopping you from being able to kind of die. What that would do to somebody. You know, what happens to human beings when death no longer has any meaning? It's kind of an interesting question. And if that, you know, that would drive us insane. Which I think is probably a little bit of what Anne Rice goes into a little bit with Lestat, or at least early Anne Rice. Okay. Well, let's see here. Post-murder congregation. Nowhere by a train. Yeah, he kills the scientist who creates him and just never stops doing it. It never stops doing it. It brings him joy to murder. All right. Was that before? Was he like that before? Kind of like Frankenstein's monster, where it's got the brain of a murderer. So was he a killer before, or did the process of it turn him into a killer? Is it like sort of the cyborg part of him? What's the opposite of a messiah? Yeah, the problem is messiahs can be both good and ill in a lot of ways. Because saving, whatever a savior means, depends on the people who see them as the savior. So, messiah would probably be, you know, someone who's I mean, the ultimate nihilist in a lot of ways. You'd probably think the person who actively wants someone. At that point, you have to be a person who actively dismisses or wants to, I guess, destroy the world or destroy everything. But in a way, you could argue that that's them seeing that they're saving it, so they would still, in a way, or at least be seen messianic by certain people. So it's kind of odd, you know. It's always the nice thing about a messiah is a messiah can always include its own contradiction. I now know adamantium comes from the word adamant. Oh. Really? Oh, it makes sense. That actually makes a lot of sense. Adamantium. Adamant. It's kind of funny that they named it that, though. I don't know. A good way to make people groan is always have like weird names for your rare or interesting minerals. Like, what was it? I think it was an Avatar. Everyone joked about unobtainium. I think is now I need my monsters to have a name, or your monster. Oh man, so you've got a monster? Or you mean the antithesis, the Chucky character? I mean, Yasai is a good name, so now it's like, yeah, what is the other? Yasai is a solid name. What's a good counter to that? How they react to that? Okay. So after maybe the police station. Let's see, we go back to maybe we have go back to that. Maybe if we establish that, maybe we have during one of the fights, we'll have Chris, who's the sort of the traveler shows up. Okay. During the D&D night, that's when we have. You always need your sense of the uncanny. The next door fight. And then from that we have next door fight. And then we have Chris leaving with the kid. And maybe they see the figures. So we tease Shayla. Shayla. And Chris should be bleeding. Shayla. Might be more interesting just not even hide that she's in a weird way tied to this thing. Initially, when I was writing the draft, I kind of wanted to keep it a little bit of like kind of close to the chest. You know, if she was in fact tied to the traveler, but it might be too many things you're trying to do. It might just be better to make that immediately tied and make the question about it something else, not the whodunit part, but the, because yeah, that's like a thing with slashers too. A lot of times it's who is it, it's Scream, it's a lot of these who is the monster. The interesting thing is, like with Halloween though, you know exactly who it is. It's just Mike Myers. It's just there's no mystery there, and it's kind of what makes it interesting, is that it's just it just is. So maybe just we'll go that route, the sort of the Terminator, the Alien route, the sort of, I mean, they even do the sort of like red herring with Reese thinking, although you kind of have an idea that you're not totally sure what's happening, but you're pretty sure Arnie's the bad guy. You don't really see Reese killing people the way you see Arnie killing people. So as the audience member, you kind of are aware of who's good, who's bad. But of course she's not. And even as an audience member, you're kind of, he does it a lot better in Terminator 2, trying to, that particular like tension, trying to like get the audience to guess who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. He does it punches better in Terminator 2. Sometimes it's better just, nope, that's your bad guy. That's who it is. But then, you can get to more interesting questions of why, that sort of thing. Like, why are they the bad guy? Why are they doing what they're doing? All right, so then we go to, what do we do after that? Let's see here. go over to... Just going through the old script here. Let's see. So that's our midpoint. So we do all the flashback stuff. Let's keep going up. I want there to be some mystery, but he needs a before death name. Okay, yeah, yeah. Give them like an actual person name, and then they have like their super villain, their whatever that is, the other villain name. Francis could be a good call. Yeah, Francis. What's Chucky's name? I'm pretty sure Chucky actually has a name before it's Chucky. Why do I feel like it starts with a D or something? But yeah, I'm pretty sure Chucky actually has a name too. Like his actual human name. Charles Lee Ray. Hey, thanks. That's who it is. I mean, Francis Ray. Not bad. Okay, yeah, so we can probably just go straight into maybe. So we have her eating leftover and searching. Post-fight here. Francis Keller. Oh, Keller's good. Keller's a good last name. Yeah, I think Francis Keller would be cool. For a before death name. Keller's also got a little bit of like a old-timey. It's got an old-timey vibe to it. I don't know why. Maybe I think there was a bunch of people back in the you read about famous people in the 1800s. Obviously, Helen Keller being one, but I think there was a few like scientists and stuff that had the last name Keller. So maybe, yeah, we've got, so that's where we established that. So what does she do here? Yeah, they don't think he was run over by, it's a good way to cut. Go from, we don't think, you know, no reason, blah, blah, blah. Cops can't talk about anything, but there are questions to be asked. And then we go to, back to Shayla, and what's she up to? No, you're fine, man. Don't worry about Isaiah. You're fine. It does not bother me at all. That's kind of what it's here for, Talk your story ideas out, man, work it out. It's kind of half the reason why I do this. It's even if you're just talking to yourself, lots of times, sometimes just verbalizing it helps the ideas flow better. So don't you worry. I welcome it. I certainly welcome it. If we want to go identity here, the only problem with doing identity, particularly if there's a sub, kind of, I'm almost commenting on the internet here a little bit. You got to be very careful about relying too much and just making it perfect blue. It's because Perfect Blue probably is the most solid horror film ever made about the questions of identity and virtual identities in life. So, like, not just fan and not even just on, like, you know, like, obviously the fan and idol culture and all that kind of stuff that it's commenting on, but even just identity versus what's online versus and internalized identities as well. It's just perfect. It's one of the few movies out there that's just perfect in a lot of ways. So you have to be careful with just making it too close to that. Even though that's kind of what we're doing here a little bit. We're just trying to do it in a different way and say something different about it. Oh, that's right. This is where I have her give booze. That's right. I forgot I had a scene in the original draft where she gives booze to the kid to put the kid to sleep. Which it's funny now that that's like a thing that's considered dangerous, because that's totally a thing that like my mother, like parents have done for a while, you know. Give just a tiny little drop of whiskey to a kid, you know, particularly if you were sick or something like that. Just, you know, now it's like akin, you know, it's child abuse. Probably it was then too. It's just, you know, different time. Brian. Oh, cool. All right. Thank you, sir. Perfect. Yeah, I think once if I get to the actual, I'll try and test the timer stuff, but we'll probably do that later when I actually get into like writing instead of me just trying to break story here. Or at least break the flow of events to make this interesting. When and where I would like things to happen. One problem that when I started writing the script, I think I was writing about everything. So it's now trying to distill it into an entertaining narrative and then let the sort of all the subtext that I'm trying to talk about play through that. Not just in the writing, but also like visually directing it as well. Let's see. Okay, maybe we have this. Instead of him leaving with the kid here, we can do the fight. We can kind of leave it just a different scenario, so the fight. So Chris. I mean, a lot of this. What writing program am I using, and is it for Mac? It is. It is called Scrivener. And I started using it pretty recently. Originally, particularly for, I would use like, oh, thank you so much. It's very nice of you to say. I originally just would write in like Pages, and because I'm on a Mac right now, I would use Pages for just outline and notes and stuff like that, and use Fade In or Final Draft for the screenwriting stuff. But I started doing some tabletop RPG writing, and had to like re-familiarize myself with Microsoft Word and needing like all these different stuff that Pages just didn't allow for. And I looked it up, and it's got a little bit of a learning curve, but it's pretty great. You can do books. It's good for doing like long form tabletop RPG writing, research. If I had known that this existed when I was in college, it would have been great. It's great for research. And like all this stuff over here, like I put a lot of research into, you can compile your research, you can put images and create image boards to inspire you. You obviously can do the split screen here. So like this is a lot of, like I have a bunch of stuff on social theory and the internet and all that I was reading for this script just as research. So you can go down through all here, write all your notes, and then the actual screenplay itself, you can do like, you can do this, I think, with books, like any format. There's some pre-built templates. So screenwriting templates, research papers, plays, books, short stories. And you can kind of go through and, actually like put these down, write notes in them. Actually write your notes in them, and kind of move them around, adjust them. It's kind of all modular. And then you can actually go into each thing and actually start working on the actual like pages. And you can split these little sections up by pretty much however you want. It's completely customizable, so you can do it by chapter, you can do it by scene, you can do it by act. It's kind of however you work best. I like the little pin-up things because I tend to like to move things around and write notes and stuff like that. It's once you get past the learning curve, and it's super customizable. I still don't know everything that you can do with this thing, but I love it. I love this program. I pretty much exclusively work in this program for everything from tabletop RPG writing to screenwriting. Oh, about the Injustice comic? My mom doesn't know about any comics. So she knows that I read them, and that's about the extent of it. So that's my mother. She I see. Okay, yeah. My mother would probably have a similar reaction to that. Where, well, actually, it was funny because I know my mom liked the Superman movies. Wait, here we go. Where am I at? Here we go. Okay. My mom liked the Superman movies, and I think isn't there one? Is it 3, or is it? It's not 2. Is it? I think it's 3 where Superman, he like becomes for a very brief period. He starts getting all aggro and angry, and like becomes the total dick. I mean, he's kind of evil, but he's he doesn't like actually go out of his way murdering people or anything like that. But he becomes like dick evil. What? I think it's Superman 3. I don't think it's 2. I'm pretty sure it's Superman 3 where he does that. Is it? Which one's the one with Richard Pryor? Ugh, now I'm like having to think about my Superman knowledge. Because I don't think it's the one with Richard Pryor. Maybe it is 2. Is it the one with Zod? I don't think it's the one with Zod. And I don't think it's... It can't be 4. 4 is terrible. Because 4 is the one, I think, where he has to go fling all the nukes into space. Yeah, it's one of those. I can't remember. It's one of them. There is one of them where Superman is bad in the movie. So my mom actually probably would be like, oh, okay, he's just, Superman evil wouldn't probably break her mind that way a little bit. Or like, what was it? Was it Red Sun? Is that the one where Superman is like with the Russians? I think he's like instead of, it's like if he had landed in Russia instead of the U.S. I always liked the design of that one. I just I always thought it was just cool design. All right, so we go Shayla's house. Shayla's house. Maybe let's have this be the baby and the booze. The baby and the booze scene, we'll call it. You need to take some more ideas from Marvel. I mean, from the comics, or you're talking about the comics. I'm assuming, because they've got, if you want to take ideas from, some of the greats, like Kirby or was it Starlin? I think didn't Starlin do Thanos? I think that was that Jim Starlin? I think so. Yeah, I mean those are, but they also Marvel that was Marvel's whole thing was interesting superheroes. We're trying to make the superheroes more interesting. The baby and the booze scene. And then we can do... Okay. And then maybe intercut. Maybe we bring together the hookah bar murders and Shayla's flashback. Trying to make it more like psychedelic and kind of get a little bit more like not directly linear. The thing that was interesting is particularly watching Saint Maud is that like they do a really good job in that movie of making not being overly explicit with the backstory. Like you get the gist of what's going on there. Like something traumatic. Although I can't remember if the movie's ever really clear if she was like addicted to sex beforehand or if she was using sex as a sort of I think they're implying that she was using sex as a way to like cover up the trauma of what she went through and like the abandonment that she went through by the people she worked with as a nurse, and then in that sort of dark night of the soul found God, or found like her she got all crazy like into the Catholic thing, and then it becomes like pathological and psychopathic almost. But they do a really good job of kind of like making that trippy and eerie, but not like overstating it. And so it was really good. It was really good to watch a movie be confident enough to do that and not feel like it had to spell it out for the audience that way. So I'm kind of trying to do that here. It's a little harder because we understand religion. We understand religion a lot better than we understand like Lovecraftian cosmic nonsense that I'm trying to do here. So I can do it, and you don't need people to fully understand it. That's kind of part of the appeal of the Lovecraftianness of it is, you want the lore to make some kind of sense somewhere, even if it's mysterious and strange. That's kind of, it's like walking. It's a balancing act. You want it to be mysterious and strange, but not be completely random. Let's see here. All my favorites come from Kirby. Okay. Except for Spider-Man and his Rogues Gallery. Very cool. Yeah. I mean, I love the Eternals. I just like Kirby anything. Like I got really into the New Gods and the stuff he was doing for DC. But, and of course Galactus and stuff. I like the concept of a poet serial killer who leaves poems about his kills. That's cool. I mean, it's always, it's very like linguistic and fun, and you can play a lot in that world. You can, You can write a lot of morbid poetry. Was there like weird art left behind by the serial killer in Art School Confidential? Did he do that? Or yeah, he did. Yeah, he made weird art of all of his kills, I think. Right? I'm pretty sure, because I think they find it, or the kid from Art School Confidential takes one of them, or is gifted one of them. I can't remember, and they all think it's him, but it turns out to be the sort of like angry fired teacher he goes and talks to, the old artist. So it's kind of similar. I mean, those are always fun, like art murderers, art serial killers. You know, that can always be fun. Fun to play with. So, what do we got here? Oh, did we go through? I think we did. There we go. All right. Let's see here. Let's go back to. Yeah, there we go. Let's go back to this. Oh, it'd be your version of the Riddler? Yeah, that absolutely. 100%. That would absolutely be the Riddler. The serial killer Riddler would absolutely just leave really, really, really intense poetry about about all of his kills, for sure. Is my child yelling at me? I think my child is yelling at me right now. Okay. My giant orange furry child. You're fine, bud. You're fine. Hello. Hello. I have a very fat Garfield cat, and he likes a lot of attention. He is more like a dog than he is a cat. Not going in. My ideas are just theft. No, all ideas really are theft. It's just how you play with them and what you do with them that makes them your own, and your own idiosyncratic obsessions. You know, it's fine. You can't. There's been so much stuff made over the course of human history. It's at a certain point, man, you're just gonna make yourself crazy trying to like think it's not. You know, think that it has to be 100% unique and new, and half the things that we think are 100% unique and new have existed time and time again, a million places. Yeah, don't be yours. I think a serial killer writing poems about his kills is totally good. Totally. I haven't heard anyone do that. And comparing it to the Riddler's that's good. It's an archetype to build it off of. You can just say, okay, I know the Riddler. I know how the Riddler works. Now let's do, how does this work? And it can give you a kind of logic to go off of. Nothing thievy about that. It's just a framework. We tell stories the way we tell stories because stories have been told. You can push the bounds of it and try to play with it and do something different and interesting with it, but usually if you're doing something different and interesting, by doing that you're commenting on the way that we know and understand stories to begin with. So yeah, well, don't worry too much about that. Baby and the Booze. And then this back happen concurrently. Gives us good cutaways. That might be a better thing to have happen there, because in the initial draft I build the tension by having two of the main characters living in the same apartment complex, but I think that it's more interesting to, one, bring it outside of an apartment complex, because everything takes place inside of apartment complexes, or like rooms or houses. Give a fun. I don't know if the hookah bar would work as a location as a second act end, but moving that. Oh, buddy! Oh my God! What? Oh my God! What? scream. Scream into the mic. Scream to the world, buddy. Hello. Hello. Hello, sweet boy. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not paying attention to you. Come on. Come on. Down you go. Go lay down. I actually have like claws on the edge of my arm where he or like scratches where he just will harass me until I pay attention to him when I'm working. Monkey gonna be cool. Monkey gonna be cool. He would be a monk that transforms into a whole front monkey. That's a terrible joke. That's it's good though. I don't know. I don't mind this. A monk who turns into a monkey. That isn't that yeah. In one moment he's a monk and then he's a monkey. I feel like that would be like a D&D character I would see like someone doing like I don't know if there's any there's definitely a race in D&D I think that's like monkey people. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm almost positive there is. And then D&D you could literally be a monk that's a monkey. Like a were monkey. The full moon comes out and he turns into a monkey. Goes and throws poo at people or something. Eats bananas. Does his thing. Alright. If we do that... So now it's like, okay, well how does this build into the end of the second act? So, what's our part 3? Weremonk. Yep, the Weremonk. Weremonk is a really good way to do it because it's both monk and monkey. So, it implies the ability to transform and the dual nature of the monk and monkey. It's good. That's what they're called, weremonks. Is that actually a thing? Is that a thing in D&D? Probably not. If they're not, that's what they should be called, is weremonks. So yeah, what would be... So if we're gonna change this, I have to I have to start conceiving of this a little bit bigger, because when I originally wrote it to be like a 250K movie, and now it's kind of trying to build out of that and make it like a 2 to 4 million, like, is kind of the budget range. So you have a little bit more like location play. And when I was containing it to literally just apartments and living rooms because that's what you'd like think you can get away with. But I think particularly for what the script's trying to do, it should probably be a little bit more expanded. Even then, you'd probably get away with making something like this for $500,000 to $1 million if you were clever about the way that you wanted to do your effects. So if we're gonna build into that, what should our Act 3 stuff be? Or sorry, Act 2. Climax be. Boom, boom. Yeah, that's when they're just feeding, doing all that stuff. They fragment and leave. That's the... That's right, Cameron drops acid, which we'll need to build up to. That's right, the monk that I based it off of was Saint Seraphim Sarov. That's right, that was the monk I was based off of. Where do we... That's right, that's when everyone kind of peeks out. Yeah, we need more clear delineations here. Building into... I was gonna say that's actually the next thing I'm gonna attempt to write as a rom-com, but Mary Shelley Frankenstein. That is yeah, you're definitely coming out corny, but it's appreciated. It's making me laugh. It's funny. Alright, yeah, okay. Do we want the second? Do we have that? Do we push the hookah bar? I feel like you've got to have more going on there. It could be... The other problem I've kind of written myself into is nobody escapes this thing once they're involved with it. And so that kind of takes some of the tension away. It's kind of why I wanted to add Tamra being there and maybe somehow not getting killed by it. There's also we can give it slashers, the Traveler slasher superpowers in a way, but we can't outright. We kind of want to save it for the outright sort of expression of its sort of supernatural cosmic nature till later. That actually probably should be the midpoint of the movie, now that I think about it. Yeah, the midpoint. Yeah, the midpoint should probably be ghouls. Should be ghouls. Midpoint's just ghouls. There's now ghouls everywhere. They just showed up. Midpoint should be when during a tense scene. It should essentially be the Traveler pursuing and a character essentially pulling out all the stops that would stop a normal human, but then reveal itself to be utterly alien and cosmic. Because then that's the tension there is that, there's a tension in something you kind of have to be careful with is well, okay, now this thing's it's a little bit of the cosmic horror element. It's oh, well, now you can't just shoot this thing. You can't just shoot to stop it. Now you've got to start looking at other things or we're all gonna die. So, Shmoo. Shmang. Shmang. Getting yelled at by my shmang cat. What, bud? You're fine. Why do you never let me work in peace? Why do you always harass me? Okay. Alright, back to it. Back to it. So. Okay. So the hookah bar murders probably should be the mid. That seems like a good midpoint thing. So we'll make that here. Alright, so we got the hookah bar. A shmoo? That's actually kind of, you know what? You're not 100% wrong there. It's not directly a hive mind, but you're not actually that far off with what eventually happens at the end of the story, which it sort of becomes everybody becomes Lily-chan, or at least the cosmic version of Lily-chan at the end of this, which is, it's sort of essentially implying that what if this thing that dropped on 4chan way long ago had like sort of Cthulhu-esque tentacles that could wrap its way into your mind, and sort of turns, so all these people, even though they're being like taken down by this thing, they slowly become essentially assimilated into that being. You know, we can call it, the internet would call it Lily-chan, but it's obviously like a nameless eldritch horror from dead stars beyond on the other side of the cosmos. But that actually is kind of what happens. It kind of is a sort of, it kind of is sort of them all being like trapped into this, trapped into the hive mind, and the sort of the traveler, our slasher, is sort of the, I mean, it's kind of the herald in a way. It's kind of like, it's like the Silver Surfer in that way. It's the herald of Galactus. And so that's actually how our characters get around it, is that they essentially reject not necessarily the hive mind, but the sort of like comfort bliss of despair. Since a lot of this is going to have to do with a little bit with depression, there's a lot of that in this. But that's kind of, you're not far off. I'm kind of using that chassis though. It's a similar chassis to what you're describing right there. That's kind of what it eventually shows up to. Oh my god, buddy, hello. It's just screaming at me. A schmang. What? Hello. Let Papa write. Papa needs to work. Yes. Papa's gotta work. He likes his butt spanked. Because that's how he is, I guess. Oh my god, buddy. Alright, so yeah, so we should definitely use this as the, I don't know, the idea of a, yeah, mental illness comparisons, yeah. Yep. Yeah, a lot of this, I was doing a lot of research into identity, particularly like expressions of like identity amongst queer communities and things like that, and how MySpace was also an outlet for people to kind of express themselves, but also kind of, it wasn't necessarily in the healthiest way. Like, it was a useful expression for them to kind of feel free. And this is like back in the 2000s, like when I was in high school, like mid 2000s, early 2000s. But also carried with it a lot of the same trappings, and like sort of, you know, you can't fully escape the system and the values that you're brought up into. So it's a form of identity making, but it's identity making that's still trapped in the sort of same kind of problems that come with what they're trying to escape. So in a way, it's kind of like an Ouroboros. And so there's no real free determination there for themselves. And so I was into that, and I was into kind of what I tend to see is sort of like a type of nihilism and a type of despair that comes from like deep internet communities. And those deep, those the sort of like sense of like when you see people look at like on 4chan, they kind of get all wrapped up and obsessive, at least did back in the day, about things like Kraki-chan, and there was a few others like Crazy, I think Crazy, what was it, Crazy-chan? She had the crazy eyes back. It's a long time ago. They become like intensely obsessed, and a part of that obviously has to do with sex. But there's more to it than just that. There's a sort of deep loneliness and alienation that comes with it. And there's a lot of that in cosmic horror too. Deep existential isolation and despair. So essentially just trying to bring those two things together and see if anything sings, pretty much. What if her problem is that she hears voices that tell her to kill, and that explains why she kills every victim. Why she kills every victim, wants her to get more people to join. That's kind of it. It's not so much that she hears voices, because I kind of like the idea that she's doing it subconsciously, that she herself is not even directly aware that she's doing it. That it's sort of like it's just happening naturally and it's spreading. But it is like that is why, that is the mechanic. That's what's happening there, is that it's essentially finding miserable people who are isolating themselves, which is why all these characters in the second part of the film start isolating themselves. It's why it starts picking off those people, because people who are kind of becoming indulgent in their depression in a way, or in their destructive depression, are essentially there to be like to join this thing. So that's kind of what's happening a little bit. I'm going about it in a little bit of a different way, not so much just like the voice, not so much like with voices, but more like she's doing it and there's a part of her that's aware of it, but it's not an intentional thing. It's not like she's directly, a voice is telling her to go do it, she goes and does it. It's more when something is triggered in her mind, this thing sort of activates and goes out and starts to, do its thing. They get joy. They get joy in her hive mind. Yep, that's we realize that at the very end, when our main characters get pulled into the sort of the church of Lily-chan, so to speak. It's not so much joy, but catharsis from pain. Which is also drawing back on it being a mildly sexual thing, and want people to come along, but humans try rejecting it even though it's actual happiness. Oh, that's interesting. So like they actually reject it because it's even though it is actual happiness, sort of like an affirmation of suffering. I was going for mental health and that people gain joy from her suffering. Oh, got you. Okay. People gain joy from her suffering. Yeah, I mean that's dark shit. But this one's more just, I think, really just trying to delve into the hive mind thing. Is that they do reject the hive mind, or this sort of like the sense of like alien and isolated catharsis. Essentially, I'm trying to sense that like we, even in our loneliness, struggling together as a community, like the idea that we can forge real bonds with people and relationships that are outside of like a lot of the mechanisms that we have today that tell us that this is what they're doing, and in fact they're making us more lonely and more isolated. Oh, I see. So she kills, but it doesn't help. Oh, that's interesting. It's probably not what that's probably not what I'm going to do with this one, but that is interesting. It ends up helping them. It's interesting. That's interesting to have it be like kind of a symbiotic relationship that then separates and starts to act against each other. It's an interesting idea. So let's see here. Midpoint should be. So if we make that the midpoint, the hookah bar murders. I feel like that belongs in like a 1920s thing. So, I'm just going to kill this. And probably, actually, yeah, we'll probably still want this to happen concurrently. Yeah. Let's see here. All right. Let's see here. All right. Baba. Character pulling out of the stops that would stop a normal. So we do that. So we have Tamara. So Tamara's gonna survive this encounter, and that's gonna take us to. Then we have, yeah, so Tamara's going to survive, and she's going to be the one. So she carries the sort of light lore and discovery about the nature of the traveler, and perhaps the nature of Shayla. So that's where, you know, because it wouldn't be a good cosmic. I feel like almost every cosmic horror thing, I mean, if we're going traditional with it, it almost always has to have a cult. So we can at least imply a weird cult. I don't know if we want to. Cults are hard to do in like slasher movies, I feel like. It's just too many pieces. But you can at least imply it, you know. Because a lot of cosmic horror needs to imply history. It kind of has to imply a lot of things. Like it's kind of, you know, history. It's like archaeology, history, lore, study. So she's kind of our internet anthropologist or archaeologist. Just, who knows Lily John? So Tamara's gonna at least get things started for the second half of the second act. Let's see here. Traveler pursuing, yeah. Let's see. If we're going to try to keep this short and sweet, we can't have a lot of pieces in between here. So we have to make sure that these things are going to move pretty concurrently into each other. Or pretty quickly into each other, I mean. And then when it's too long, you start cutting things down and making it trippy. Almost as if we're gonna call and repeat. So we do apartment. Alright, so we do Cameron apartment. That's where we got, or that's where we get mean, after that murder, you're gonna have the cops back there, so we can probably bring the cops back. Tamara's gonna go on about the Lily-chan nonsense. Just gonna further alienate the cops that they're just like, these kids are on drugs. And if we wanted to go full cosmic horror, I mean, it's low. We're playing a little bit into like the Bloodborne universe, but I don't know. Maybe the moon turns red, because why not? That's weird. But what could be kind of interesting is, and this goes into like not agreed upon realities, which is like a big thing on the internet, as we've come to learn today. But what if not everyone sees this? So say only a fraction of the main characters see this. Everyone else acts like this is completely normal. Or like that everything acts like everything is normal. Everything is normal. Because that could be moderately interesting, maybe, perhaps. Who knows? Time will tell. Time will tell if that idea works, or that's just too many things on top of each other. All right. Let us see here. Okay. Okay. So we still need to flesh out the beats that are going to get us to the midpoint, and then the things that carry us over after. Now we're going to slowly raise them stakes. Now the question is, do we actually have the cops act, or do we have the cops be completely just sort of checked out, like they're kind of just doing their job and think they... I feel like we've got to have like a cop actually investigating or something. It's always the not every character can see it trope is weird. I mean, it is weird. It's a weird thing for sure. It might not work. We'll see. But I like the idea of reality fragmenting to where nothing is agreed upon. But sometimes you don't want to like, confuse the audience or have it not work. So we'll just kind of let that sit and simmer and see if that's something that'll worm its way in, or if it's just not going to work. It's not going to work there. Maybe they actually did do drugs and test positive, but come back to the same mess. Yeah, that's possible too. We do. There's a scene later on where one of the guys does drop acid. You know, it's hard to like, because if you're having people deal with like trauma and death, it's hard to justify. They could do drugs as a form of checking out. That's true. It's hard to make them like completely sympathetic if you just have characters just fully escaping, but having all of them do drugs, that's not a bad way to do it. They actually do drugs, test positive. Yeah. Body horror with cosmic horror is epic. Well, yes. I mean, those two things go hand in hand. They live together very, very well. I mean, even though Cronenberg's stuff is not Lovecraftian at all, people associate it with Lovecraft specifically because of the body horror, like The Fly. It's not. It's completely doing its own thing. But the cosmic horror and body horror are cool. So maybe that's a good thing. We'll add some. How do we get more body horror in here? Not just bloody slasher nonsense, but some weird stuff. We definitely get body mutilation and like ritualistic posing. We definitely get some of that so far, and what's in there, particularly towards the end. We can do some weird stuff with there. We could get weird with it. Let's get weird with it. Get weird with it. Let's do fleshy transmutation. Transmutation of I don't know, maybe the kid. That would be weird. Maybe Shayla's kid. I know we have it. I have that as a ritual sacrifice at the end of it, where she essentially burns the kid to like ascend cosmically. But it might be kind of interesting to do something else with that. Maybe we'll see. But I do like that. It is epic cool. If you got the budget for it. Always remember, if you got the budget for it. If you got the budget to do some weird stuff. Let's see here. Whoops. All right. Michael Bay, maybe we'll have a body explode. We could only, even if he did have a body explode, he'd be cutting the camera so much I wouldn't even be able to tell what was happening. It's like maybe 1990s Michael Bay. That would be kind of fun to watch Michael Bay just make a body explode. But particularly his more recent outings, it's like I can barely understand anything that's happening in his movies. Unless he wants to fly a drone through a hole, which he did like 9 times in Ambulance. For whatever reason. You know, it's just same shot over and over again. Let's see. These kids are on drugs. Who knows? Maybe they are. But let's see. Eventually have do we do let's see, yeah, let's write down a cop set piece. Do we have a cop set piece? Doesn't really make sense why we'd have it kill Did you know people inflate themselves for sexual gratification? LOL. Real life is like inflate themselves like they suck in air? And like like try to like hold their like how do you inflate yourself? Like I mean aside from just like emotionally like inflate your ego. Like it's very. I mean, if you pumped yourself up like a bicycle, you'd die. Air pockets in the blood vessels would just kill you. Or do you mean like in terms of like the penis? Like, because I do know that some people like have like they've got like weird like penis pump things. I think they mostly make that for people that have like problems, like heart problems. Do we have a concept? I don't know. It's like, it's kind of, I wanted to specifically, you know, the idea is to have it be just the kids. Like, okay, so they put it up their butt, and then, oh man, that's bizarre. Like air enemas, that's weird. That's some weird shit. I just feel like, I feel like you would just fart it all out. I don't know. How does it, I mean, I guess if you just want the pressure up there, maybe it would work. I feel like you would just immediately fart. It's funny. Cobs of bees. Let's see. Do we want that? Your brother-in-law told you about it? Wow, weird stuff happens. Yeah. Yeah, people are weird. People are dumb, and people are weird. Never underestimate the capacity of human beings to do just bizarre shit. We have a knack for it, and we find ways. Usually where sex is concerned primarily, we definitely find ways to do all kinds of wacky stuff. You know, no kink shaming though. Don't want to kink shame now. I will say air enemas is kind of silly. Oh yeah, so there was a TV show about weird sexual attractions. I'm pretty sure I might have seen, if you were watching that show, I definitely have seen the show about people who are sexually attracted to their cars. I have watched that show. You know, I think there's actually a part 2 where they have the guy like masturbate, like where he's like out trying to like actually like have sex with the pipe in the back. It's so weird. It's like, but he's like doing it with the cruise car. The little theatrics we play. And of course, like, and then I think he had to pretend like he was apologizing to his car, like he cheated on it. It's like you're just playing like almost a game, but like a real life game, but in this weird disassociated way. It's just odd. It's odd. The things that we do. But hey, if that's what gets you off, more power to you. I feel like Scream kind of does this too, where they have like, they do the whole cop thing, but they actually have, and they make him an idiot, but then they actually make him useful, so they kind of like double flip it on itself. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely want to see the failures of cops, so I don't know if we want to have like, the problem is you can't ignore cops in a world where people, like kids on a college campus, are being murdered. Like, you have to at least acknowledge that they exist and that they're doing things. I saw one of those about someone that married their beau. Oh. Like, they're really just really into archery. They're just really into it. And they're like, I mean, I don't know. It's not it's not exclusive to like Japan. Like we do all that weird shit too. You know, just because it's not like weird, anime dolls or whatever. It's like, it's for us. It's like cars. Actually, that makes a lot of sense, to be honest with you. If it's like cars and bows, it makes a lot of sense that in America or in the West, it would be like, we're so into it. We're so into it. We just want to marry our cars. Because we like to go fast. It was a cool looking bow. Well, I'd hope so. I definitely hope it was a very elegant and attractive bow. But hey, whatever makes you happy. Like, it's odd that they were in love with the bow. Like, I get being in love with archery, like it's a relationship, but in love with a bow is interesting. Yeah, it's odd. Odd. That'll be the next script I write. I'll just write a script about kink. Be like my attempt at John Waters, trying to do like John Waters movies. I'll just make weird movies about weird kinky shit. Yeah, I don't think we should have. I don't think we should have cop being the focus. We can just have it be. We can just have it exist. Let's do not a set piece. Not a set piece, but a scene that gets to the heart of their ignorance of the total situation. The totality of the situation, I guess. The totality of the situation. Imagine if the cop shows up, fails to realize there's a killer in the house, but trips and then saves them somehow when they run out of the house. That's true. That's true. I don't know if I want them showing up fails to realize that there's anything happening. I don't know if I want the cop to inadvertently save anybody, though. I feel like it's like, and they have to be. I definitely feel like I want them to be just completely unprepared for what they're dealing with, because they're not utterly fail. And that is a trope. It's definitely not. We're not kind of flipping the trope on its head there, doing anything interesting, because that would be it, where the cops inadvertently saves everybody. It's a very, because that seems a lot like, kind of like almost like Scream, where the cop doesn't realize anything but accidentally saves people. But I feel like, at least tonally for this kind of story, it definitely needs to be a just complete and utter failure, and even a complete and utter intentional failure. It's not so much that they're not just not prepared, they're also unwilling to learn, or even act like there's anything wrong, really. Like they act like something's wrong, but they look in all the wrong places. You know, they're gonna look for like gangbangers, they're gonna look for all this kind of shit, like the shit you would expect cops to look for, and just ignore the actual cause of this thing. But having the cops, I like the idea of having the cops showing up and then failing to realize anything. I like that. That's a good idea. When they run out of the house. You know what? Maybe that's something like that can go into our third act bit. Something like that. Maybe she swats the house using the site, and they come and kill multiple people. I see. Using the site, and they come and kill. Oh, so like so the cops come and then accidentally kill a lot of people. Yeah, that could work too. Yeah, like manipulating them in a way. That's a good idea. I did not think of manipulation tactics out of this. I was thinking more like deeply primal, but that's a good idea. Manipulation tactics. Yeah. Somehow uses the cops to its advantage. And that could be interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, manipulate. Somehow it uses the cops to its advantage. As an example, gets them to think the killer is at the wrong house, and they end up killing a bunch of people. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. That's a good. Yeah, that seems like something we'd probably do. That's a good third act. That's a good third act thing. It gets the cops off. It gets the cops away from everybody. So then we can just follow the kids and the murderer themselves, and it's sort of, then we don't have to think about why the cops aren't where and why where the cops are. We don't even have to think about it. So third. Set piece. So that's definitely a set piece, because that's extraordinarily. That is It's a good idea. If we do something, we might have to change it up a little bit, because the moment you start getting a fuckload of cop cars, it's a deeply expensive thing to do on film. It's deeply expensive. It spooked me when I thought of it, so I had to say it. Yeah, well, because it's legit terrifying. It's also highly highly probable. It's not wild to not think that, you know, they're gonna run in guns ablazing and just accidentally kill a bunch of people. So you're not wrong. So it's a good idea. It's a spooky idea too. So if I can set up a mechanism for that to work, that's a good idea, or something similar. Maybe not directly that, but something very similar to where they can utilize the cops, and it results in a lot of people dying or something like that. The only thing we have to be careful with is that is deeply expensive. You know, sometimes you can get away with cops. You know, you just gotta put people in a cop outfit. Which, by the way, when I did do the last film I did, that was insanely hard. I had to write like 9 different letters to like all these outfits. It was like they were like security outfits, and we had like fake cop badges made and stuff. It wasn't even real places, and like I had to write so many letters, like literally like on my life, saying I wasn't going to be intimidating cops with these outfits. It was so dumb. Yeah, it's wild. Do you plan on actually filming it? I mean, I'd like to. I'd absolutely love to. Almost everything that I write, screenplay-wise, I don't generally write screenplays to like sell. I write them to film, to direct. So that's gonna be maybe, yeah. So that's initially the reason why we're coming back and like writing, or I'm coming back and doing kind of a rewrite on this, is I originally had written it to be like a $250K movie. So it was very, very, very streamlined. It was very toned down, very, very. And now I'm rewriting this with a like $500,000 to $2 to $4 million budget in mind, which gives you a little bit more leeway. You get to play a little bit more, but anything to do with fucking cops, like large amounts of cops, is expensive. It's deeply expensive, because then you got to rent cop cars. Also, you have to probably fabricate cop cars, because if you are not displaying cops in the best light, which this certainly wouldn't be, they're not going to just offer their services, you know, to like help you do it. So you kind of got to like build it from scratch a little bit. But yes, yeah. So most of these, I mean, obviously, it's mostly as you can come up and spitball ideas. You don't need to like tone it down. You just, you know, spitball ideas, and then kind of as you're writing it, you want to kind of keep the budget in mind as you're actually formulating everything and kind of bringing it together, or figuring out, is there an interesting way I can do this and you can do it cheaply, you know, things like that. Initially, I don't like. It's hard. It's a hard balance, having to keep what you think would be a good budget, but like a budget in mind, and also just feeling free enough to just tell your story, and like get the story out. So, but I definitely, this now I'm rewriting it with a little bit more money in mind. So we'll see. We could probably get away with having at least some cops doing something stupid like that. Maybe not a whole SWAT team, but at least some of the cops doing something dumb could work. And we also have to remember it's a small mountain town. I mean, there are SWAT teams everywhere, but I actually don't even know where I would, because I'm basing this a lot after where I went to school. I don't even know if they had their own SWAT team. They probably would have had it gotten shipped out of Denver. But, oh my God, bud, you're fine. Hello. All right. Okay, well, real quick, I think I'm going to go refill my water and use the restroom, and we'll come back and keep on going. Schmo! I know, he's harassing the hell out of me. All right, I will be right back, everybody. Okay, now I'm back. Well, now that my mic decided to just start falling, hopefully it survives this and then I can just readjust it later. Okie doke. Alright, let's see. Yeah, I can see why. I think my desk was really designed a ton for this stuff. For having like mics and everything hanging off. Okay. Back at it. There we go. Alright, cool. So what do we got now? So, these are drugs, so yeah, so we've got maybe setting up some big showdown, and it's in the wrong place. It's always fun to film those kind of things too, where you see the cops showing up and kind of cut back to the other location, and you think it's about to happen, and then realize it's to a totally different place, and kaboom. Realizing sort of the error made, everything kind of falling apart. Alright, so hopefully before we wrap this up, at least this stream up tonight, I just hopefully get some semblance of like a skeleton here, or the order of operations. At least the order that's the whole thing's gonna run in. Alright. Let's see. A bunch of people. We definitely have the cops. Cops want the kids all together and under supervision. So that's why we want to have Megan. Or not Megan, sorry. Jamie. So we have Jamie, Cameron, Tamara, and Bailey. We're all going to be at this location. Shayla, because she lives next door, we're going to have her be... so she might be even more kind of hiding. Because if there's gonna be a bunch of cops around, she's definitely particularly someone who's dabbling in drugs and coming from probably spending a lot of time around criminal kind of anything you kind of when you're in like low class places, like a lot of poor people, for very good reasons, are very distrustful of the cops. So even if drugs weren't a factor, probably still very wary if there's a lot of cops around. So she'll be inside and wary for cops around. And maybe, because, yeah, there was the idea that she... sends them there. If there's a manipulation that happens in the third act, maybe that's when she becomes aware. Maybe there's a point. Maybe let's do that. Let's have there should be an actual turn. So let's say we need a turn where her violent expressions with the traveler no longer are subconscious. But become conscious. So in a way, we can say that this is where she lets it. So this would be the cosmic entity, it. The cosmic entity, it. Take over. So she spent a lot of time running away from it, or like communing with it in a way. Now she's just going to go ahead and this is sort of, she sees that sort of, she sort of decides that it's and this can kind of go into the identity thing maybe, but so this is where she just sort of tears away her own humanity in a way. She tears away her own humanity and lets this alien identity that has gnawed at the back of her mind since she first encountered it. Take over. And so that's what. So that could be interesting, and that kind of like goes back into the. Now she kind of like she lets it exist. Like maybe she was keeping it at bay. That could actually give, you know, it's like that kind of gives the her you know, the escapist elements of drug use, probably poor decisions, getting, you know, the idea of running off with probably a very toxic man, you know, just like in running away from home and all. I mean, she, you know, we could even have it that her home family, it wasn't particularly great to begin with, but that kind of lets it sort of like, it's more she was trying to escape this thing that she sort of touched her and sort of in her mind so long ago, and there's like triggers that unlock it, and now she's just sort of letting herself get taken over it, and it clearly has this pull, this sort of like Cthulhu-y kind of the tentacles that reach out in your dreams, you know, the idea that Cthulhu reaches out in our dreams, in order to release it. This is sort of where it's just sort of assimilating. It's just wanting all the people to join in its sort of like, in its catharsis, which is a deeply isolated, we all slowly become characters of ourselves, clones of ourselves, separate identities in our humanity, our sort of senses destroyed. And then you realize that this whole movie is actually about the internet. So that works, I think. I think that actually, I kind of like that a lot. Actually, and that gives me a good mechanism, a good through line. So, it's a good through line by which to understand the mechanics of the monster. And then, as clear as we can make that, then we can start getting fancy and trippy and pull things away to make it more like, so the audience has to work to figure that out if they actually spend the time thinking about it, or even thinking about it allegorically. Actually, this might actually go better in. Let's go into characters. It's Bailey. Let's do. Let's make this. We'll just do this so, because this is more to the core of what she is. To cover from Alright, which means we might have to wrap up somewhat soonish, but we'll see. That's fine. Alright. In order to mask troubled childhood with deep religious background. She finds an escape, and I think in the original script it's actually a lover of hers, so we'll maybe keep that for now. A lover of hers. To the stars. Where is she? Stars. On a crazy trip. Crazy drug trip. Or drunk. On a crazy drug trip. Of a kind. Takes her into the stars, and she encounters an entity that touches her mind and takes the shape of Saint Sarov. Sarov, the monk. There. Like a shadow. Eventually posts online under the handle Lily-chan, and it takes off. An entire online religion surrounds her, rejects it, and runs away. She runs away from home. Lives on the streets, where she eventually falls to drugs and toxic relationships that result in an unwanted child and an unwanted relationship. Cool. Okay. Okay. From there, in the course of her slow breakdown, the eldritch darkness in her mind manifests after a trigger, which we still haven't specified what it is, or if we even see it. It might be kind of interesting. We could play with it. Trigger. This summons the traveler from the stars and And it begins to claim those it sees as being in need of this cosmic catharsis, which in a way is the hive mind. The hive mind from earlier, which is kind of what it is. Okay. Let's see this thing is cosmic catharsis. At first, this is happening in her mind, or this is happening with her unaware, and the fractured mind rejects it. Rejects that it's happening. Through the course of the story, she becomes aware of it rising up. She becomes aware of it and embraces it. And maybe, this could be the part, maybe performs kind of ritual. Make it some kind of ritualistic thing to essentially destroy her real self and transform into the movement of this eldritch creature. Yeah. Eldritch creature. There, she has assumed the identity of a goddess of the internet, a goddess of despair, of one who rejects the world and supplants it with its own. And of course we have to make it a little bit of a weird sex thing because, you know, it's the internet. The internet, if we know anything about the internet is horny. So you've always gotta make it kind of a weird sex thing. And that works for slashers too. Slashers always have a weird, like, psychosexual element to them. We'll just do our best to make this one not just straight up shitty to women. Alright. Rejects the world and supplants it with its own. There, it seeks to turn all others into its own likeness. A frail parody. Fractured parody. A fractured parody. Themselves and of Lily-chan. Themselves and of Lily-chan instead. Clones. It's like essentially clones of themselves and made to look like, made to share Chan's likeness. So in the same way that one could argue that religion oftentimes it does this, it creates a dogma and a sort of ritual out of duplication, both in like identity and likeness, to sort of duplicate the idea of trying to be like it. But it's sort of like a hollow caricature of it. That's what these characters are becoming. So even though they're like, to use the lingo of like hive mind, they become assimilated into it and sort of like under the emotional draw. They're pulled by the emotional draw of catharsis. That's sort of the ache, the pain that they feel inside themselves, the lack they feel inside themselves will be purged with this catharsis. They find that they are devoured by hollow imitations that share both their likeness and the likeness of Lilychan. So they are still themselves, but they assume the sort of the paint. They share the shape of the two. They become both. They become both. Meaning that the identity itself is broken and fragmented. And so, of course, that's when the heroes, our leads, who survive, reject this deep impulse. Who reject the impulse, find themselves back in an agreed upon world. The real world. So maybe that's so that's good. Okay, so that's, we at least have this is much more concrete and clear as to how the relationship between Lilychan, Shayla, and the Traveler function, because that's kind of the trifecta. We have kind of a trinity here. We have a trinity, the three: Shayla, Lilychan, the Traveler. And those three are all functionally the same thing, just with different skins. They all kind of operate in the same way. They each has their unique individual identity, or they're informed by a different thing, but they kind of coalesce around all that is essentially Shayla, until Shayla purges her own humanity, essentially, to become Lilychan. So each is informed, and of course, the Traveler, at least as the likeness of the Traveler, comes from Shayla's unconscious, from her deep religious upbringing. So that works, I think, for now. So still technically need to figure out at least the beats. So that's going to be what's going to have to happen next. You gotta figure out the beats. Once the beats are done, then I can probably start fleshing out a little bit more closer to this treatment. Maybe get some better ideas with the psychedelic angle. And then might be able to actually figure out pages. Start actually getting pages, because I'd like to get this thing written here in the next few weeks. So hopefully we can get this updated draft done. We're just going to have to tie the beats together. But at least now, because that was the hardest part, is how can I say what I want to say? Because it's always, so much of it happens with the monster. But you're saying something specifically with the monster. So many horror movies thematically come from what their themes are, and what they're saying about the world usually comes from the world and the monster, and those two things at odds with each other. Be it, deeply disturbing, and, maybe I'll go back and watch Alien again, since that's probably the best horror film ever made. And we can, maybe that'll because that says like everything it needs to without having to actually say anything. It's so not preachy, but about all the war shit. It's so great. It's elegant, is the way to put it. It is. I admire its purity. All right. Well, with that, I think I don't even know how long we've technically been streaming. It was kind of a shorter stream, yeah, just shy of 3 hours. I was kind of hoping for 4, but I think we will probably, yeah. I mean, we'll stream tomorrow. Now that I got the timer stuff figured out. That took about 2 hours. We can pick up and do it tomorrow. So anyway, everyone, thanks for watching. Yesaya, I don't know if you're still here, but if you are, thank you for hopping on and thanks for the follow. Yeah, this is probably, it's all still so new to me. I'm still learning how any of this works. But I also can't wait to hear more about your how your story's coming with your Superman-esque, super-powered fighting Chucky, which I just love. Now I have the image of just Chucky and Superman fighting each other. But thank you anyway. Yes, have a good one. And we'll see you. I'll be back on tomorrow. So if you're around, look forward to seeing you then. Alrighty, everybody. Take care.